So here's a beautiful piece of meat, and if I wanted to get fancy with this, what it is a, as this says, just so that you know what to ask for: pork loin, chop, bone in, and it's a center cut. If you look at a whole pork roast, it's about this long. It's got the tenderloin in it, and then it's got the bones and this in it. And I had them cut me out the middle of it because I liked the way it looked. I think the chops looked nice. I thought the bones looked nice. And then I had them cut me off the bone that runs along here, because that way when it's done I'll actually be able to slip my knife in here and cut individual chops if I want to do that. So if you're worried about that, if you want to be able to cut it up, I recommend that you ask them to cut off, what do they call this? Oh geez, I can't remember the name of that bone. It's like the sply bone or something. But I have them cut off the end of that bone so that I'll be able to slip my knife through there. You can also have them start it, clip, 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 according to the chops, because that's all these are. That's a pork chop, right? It's just a bunch of pork chops connected in a roast. So you can ask them to start the chops for you. I don't do that because that will let out a lot of the juices when it cooks, and one of the reasons I think it's nice to do a roast as opposed to doing individual chops is you can kind of singe it on the whole outside and seal in a lot of the juices, as opposed to letting that stuff dry out. The trick with all these big cuts of meat that have a big fat place and then a lean place in them is like a turkey that they want to get dry. If I wanted to get fancy with this, and if Yana wasn't already brining a turkey, I'd probably brine it. I'm not going to do that, partly because I don't want to steal her thunder, and partly because this is actually a lot simpler and it's fast. If you know what you're doing, and if you do it the right way, you can cook something like this in like an hour or an hour and 15 minutes. And that means that if you get drunk watching the football game and forget to do what you're supposed to do with the turkey, you can jump up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you've got company coming over at 5, throw this thing in the oven and actually have it ready to go, as opposed to the turkey, which doesn't ever end up being ready until 10 o'clock at night. So in here is about a teaspoon of cinnamon. I just put that much in there so that I was sure I wasn't going to run out. I doubt I'm going to use all that. This is sea salt. Speaking of my dad thinks it's redundant and pretentious to talk about sea salt. Well, this is different than regular salt. And that's really, you could say that sea salt is that it's the wrong name for it. Whatever it is, it's different stuff. And now that I have started to use it, I just don't want to use anything else. It's these big flakes, and what happens is you get a less homogeneous effect from the salt in the food, so that you get parts of it that have less salt and parts of it that have more, and I really feel like it gives the food amazing zing. So I got some sea salt. I'll probably use all that sea salt. I love salt, so I tend to use plenty of it. And this is garlic. Usually I'd just be cracking this garlic out of the press or chopping it up or something on a board, but I didn't want to bore you with all that, so I just decided to put it in that bowl. And here's some cracked pepper. I'm going to put all that cracked pepper on there. I could use some red pepper as well, and I'm not going to, because again, I'm cooking for a variety of people here and I want to make sure that things don't get too spicy. And then this is the thyme. I happen to have fresh thyme in my garden, which I love. But you can use, I did this when I lived in a cheap motel too, and when I was doing that, obviously I had dry spices. I forgot some olive oil. I'm going to go get that. You want a little bit of olive oil just to coat it so that the spices and everything will stick to it. I was thinking about, I got to write this recipe up because it doesn't do me a lot of good to just show you all this stuff and then not tell you actually how much of it I'm using. Of course, all that depends on the size and the shape of the roast. This is going to cook a little bit faster than some roasts might because it's not really big around. You'll notice the pork chops would be on the petite side if you were eating them. That's kind of one of the reasons that I wanted it, because I knew it wouldn't take as long to cook, and it ought to be a little bit easier to get it to cook evenly. It's about 5 pounds. I don't mean that it's like 6.5 or 4. I mean it's like 5.3. So, and this ought to be enough ingredients to just about handle that. When I'm cooking for people with meat with the bone in a situation like Thanksgiving when there are going to be tons and tons of sides, but the people are going to want to eat until they fall over, I figure I want a good half pound per person. So if you got a bunch of other stuff going on, this is going to give about 10 people a taste of what you're doing. Okay, so here's the olive oil. About 2 tablespoons of olive oil is what I've got here. You can use more or less than that. Again, the only reason that I'm really using it is that I want to coat the meat with it. So I just put enough of it in there that I was sure that I wasn't going to have to take my porky hands and open things up again. So I got that on there. Now I'm going to take the cinnamon and just dust it with the cinnamon. It's about a teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm going to go from fine to coarse on the seasonings. Meaning I'm going to put the finely ground cinnamon on it. I'll probably put the garlic on it. And I'll put the salt on it in a second. Okay, so there that is. Smells a little bit like cinnamon, but that's going to char too. That's the thing about these spices. Okay, now the salt. And again, if you, I don't know, if you're squeamish or whatever and you don't really want to wrestle with the meat as much as this, I suppose that doesn't matter. But I don't want to lose the seasonings. I want to make sure they really stick on there. Okay, so there that is. Now the pepper. I love cracked pepper. I think so much about this stuff that if we didn't have it, you know, we take these spices for granted and consider what it would be like cooking a dish like this. I mean, forget the cinnamon. That's really, that's peripheral, or the thyme, that's peripheral. All you really need is salt and pepper, but imagine what it would be like to cook a meal like this, to cook a dish like this and to not have salt and pepper. It would just be the worst. What a blessing. I'm gonna do my thyme. God, it's nice to have fresh herbs around, and one of the things is, obviously, they taste great, and they have a pungency that dried herbs don't have, but also, look at what's left here. That's a beautiful piece of stuff, right? So, when I serve it, I can take that piece of thyme and throw it alongside it. I'm glad we're taking a picture of this stuff. I always think about these things, that sometimes the meal looks just as nice or nicer before you actually cook it than it does after it's done. So there all that is. Now some garlic. And I'm not going to put so much garlic on here that it's going to overwhelm everything else. I think that would be a mistake. Alright, so it's time to spread the coals. This is an extra big charcoal chimney, which I love, even if you're not going to use the whole thing. Oh, here we go. So here's a standard, here's a big, and you can see the diameter of it is so different. I like the big one just because even if you're not going to fill the whole thing up, if you fill about half of it up, it gets ready twice as fast as it does in one of those smaller ones. Now, I'm going to spread the coals, and it looks like I've got this big fancy barbecue, and that might be part of the trick or whatever. It's not. It doesn't really matter. It's my opinion. I do a lot of barbecuing. The only reason I don't have a Weber is that I haven't gotten around to buying one yet. I actually think that the name of the game in barbecue is heat regulation, and Weber does a better job of that than anything else. But you can see I tried to pour the coals in a little bit of a circle and left a little bit of a cool spot in the middle. And then I'm just going to shut things. I'm going to put the grill on there and put the pork on there, and then I'm going to shut things down. It's not going to cook real slow, but if I were to just leave it on there like that, it would just start on fire. So it's a compromise. The beauty. And I'm about to put it on my beautiful bed of coals. I had to let my coals burn down a little bit so that I was like, there it is. I'll just clap that lid on it. And I got a thermometer on this thing. I never know whether to trust it. If you got a thermometer in your grill, I'm doing something like this. I look for it to be in the area of 250, 300 degrees on the thermometer.
Daddy, can you pick me up? Daddy, can you pick me up?
So, admittedly, I've been drinking a little bit of the wine in advance of of eating the pork. But what I've got in my glass here is some 07 Pyramid Cabernet. And one of the advantages of eating something that isn't turkey is that it pairs well with heavy red wine like this. So you've got yourself a nice singed, smoky piece of well-spiced meat and some heavy Cabernet Sauvignon. Should be a great combo.